I must say that I've really been looking forward to this. Last time I launched a manifesto with in 2019 MOD, and I think it came to us as a shock for many people that you could actually put KPIs on driving development, right? And we talked about green, we talked about digital and health, we spoke about how we could drive digital innovation, and a lot of it was actually listened to from the Commission, from the Parliament. So I am extremely happy to now launch the second manifesto. And we know that today we have our distinguished guests. They all have they're up for re-election. And we're going to test their digital kind of manifesto also, if they are like on top of what's going on digital. So with that, let me start by presenting a little bit on what is inside of this Europe 2030, a digital powerhouse. My first question would be if we are a digital powerhouse or if we can become one. And let's, over the course of today, we will be discussing that, and we will take all the crazy ideas on how to get there. So what we try to do is to be a really constructive partner. There's nothing worse than people complaining, right? I'll complain a little bit today, so disclaimer. But how do we actually give some solutions, some concrete solutions on how to get there? How do we actually define some KPIs that we can carry together with the policymakers? I think we more or less all have the same goals and missions on this. It's just finding out how we use the different competences in private sector, in public sector, to actually align our mission and go there together. So, with that, Europe 2030, a digital powerhouse? Question mark for some. For me, I'm all set to go there. Let's look at some of the solutions and areas. Oh, I'm supposed to click myself. Of course I am. So let's look at some of the 20 solutions. So we have 5 areas, first of all. Let me dwell at those. A competitive Europe. I mean, honestly, we can't have resilience. We cannot have digital. We can't have financial stability if we do not have competitiveness. It's just how it is. So what if under a competitive Europe, we have 20 solutions, but I've just picked a few. What if we, as an SME, I've grown 2 SMEs. What if I could go to one place and say, I'm in health, I'm doing something on x-rays and data and personal data, and by the way, I have IoT collecting, all this kind of data. How do I comply? What if there's one place online that I can just get my answers in not 20 different member states or, even 16 Bundesländer or whatever it is right around. What if we can just get answers one place in Europe and scale across border? What if we actually measure ourselves and policymakers, not on how much regulation they can make, but how we actually, are we reaching those KPIs? Are we becoming more resilient? Are we becoming more competitive? Do we have an internal market? So that's one first. Let me go the wrong route around of the clock just let's jump to a European society. Fully online public services. I can get my health record. I can pay my tax. No matter what country I'm in, I enter the same portal. I'm served in one place. I can move across border. I might even have a European skills passport. I can tell you one thing. One of my best friends, she's Danish, she lives in Brussels for the last 25 years. Her daughter wants to study in Denmark. She has a bachelor's degree, and she's told by the Danish system, you cannot come back and study because we don't know what competency, but you can start all over. Not very flattering. So how do we actually make sure that we have that mobility, even within EU? We move to the next one, a global Europe. So, like-minded partners. We are in times of trouble, but how do we collaborate as well as we can with the ones that does not look like us? And how do we stick really closely together with the other democracies that are also fighting for this to be the future? How do we make common standards? Let's face it, most of the European companies actually make the majority of profit outside Europe. So how do we make sure that we have one internal market with them, that we drive the same industry standards on AI, on digital and all this? Let's look at resilience. Well, with Ukraine, and let's hope that they win soon. You know that we've been very involved, and I want to thank my board for letting me be involved in this agenda and for really supporting that journey. Well, there is a reason why they are resilient. They had a warning in 2014. They understood that they had to move their data to cloud solutions, so they were able to move it out of the country if they were attacked. They understood that all the competences in cyber are in private sector and that they need to collaborate with private sector on this. So they built a collaboration on digital. Even now, they have an online platform for the citizens to warn if they see Russian soldiers coming across the border, they can tell and notify. There is so much to learn from that. We saw the cables being cut. We saw the mosque being bombed. How do we make sure that if we are fleeing or if something goes wrong, that we have a resilient infrastructure, that we have a resilient collaboration between private and public sector? How can we make sure that even though the policymakers might not know the risks of cyber, that we actually have a check on that regulation? We saw it in the ones who met me in the last days of the Data Act, I was so worried. I was like, are you seriously thinking about giving away data to competitors just like that? And I'm like, don't, on the windmills, all of a sudden they know where we have all the windmills, in the North Sea or something like this, right? So how do we make sure that we always have that check on, is it consistent? Is it cyber secure? Moving up to the next one, a sustainable and healthy Europe. Well, sustainability and health, two of the major challenges of the future, but unsolvable without digital. We are looking at, right now we're discussing, okay, how can we save data in the energy in the data centers? Well, it might be important, but I'm telling you, what we can do with digital in the most polluting sectors, I think we stand for 1 or 2%. But some of these sectors are up to 40%, buildings, agriculture, what we can do with digital there. And there are, masters of digital in transformation in those areas, also in the member states. How can we learn from each other? And how can we regulate so we actually get that transition done and innovate and also invest there? Health, we saw it during COVID. I would say there is nothing as bad as it's not good for something, we say in Danish. And COVID did make a leap in digital in health. But we need to continue that. We cannot fall back to, let's not do more. We need to be able to fight disease. We need more data. We need to share data. And we need to use data much more actively. So with that, those 5 areas, I actually see that we have people. I just realized that I have 4 brilliant people who has actually been totally on this agenda. We have Morten Løkkegaard, who is working on the internal market. We have Mia Petra Kumpulanatri, who is working with the EU, US, and the global Europe, and many more other things. We have Mr. Börslager, who is working on green and on the workforce. And we've been discussing a lot on the workforce and how we can create much more flexibility, long-term residence, all these kind of things, because we need that talent. Our industry more than anything else. And not least, Mr. Voss, of course, Mr. Digital. If there is a digital file, this gentleman is definitely on it. So let me look a little bit into the next one. Where are we right now? So here are 5 of the 16 KPIs that we set. 20% of the world's biggest tech companies are European. Right now, there are 2 ways of calculating. If it's market cap, well, okay, we only have 4. If it's of revenues, it's around 10. But we still have a long way to go. And it's not getting easier because it's becoming more and more difficult to scale in Europe. 30% of SMEs trading across at least 1 European border. So apart from the staff in here, I'm going to make a guessing competition. How many think that trading across border is less than 10%? How many think it's between 10 and 20? Above 20? The rest, or they don't know. Okay, 1. Okay, it's 8. And it was the same. In 2018, it was exactly the same. So we're not moving in the right direction, but it will not give up. So, of course, then, how many companies actually are using AI and data? How many companies are actually using cloud, big data services? And last but not least, Do we have 100% public services available online? To me, it's a question for the member states where they haven't started basically working even more together and aligning so citizens can go seamlessly across border. And remember to read the last 11 also. Okay, so some people might say, let's regulate our way to success. I might slightly disagree with that, but okay, not always. I think we really have seen a lot of good things. We believe that we should have standards in AI, that it's very good that we have a horizontal framework for cyber. No, the devil is in the detail, but one thing is for sure. If you are an SME looking at this tsunami of regulations, 40 regulations since the last mandate has hit and more to come. It is not easy. And if you then look at how they are implemented, oh boy. I mean, one thing that our members just answered was that their cost of compliance, even before the implementation have started of a lot of this, has grown by 20%. And I'm telling you, I put my own money in my companies. And when you put 1 crown or €1 into a job of a compliant, you don't put them in an innovator or a coder or a young person who wants a career in tech to save the world in green tech. So there is a trade-off here. And how do we find that balance? I just want to announce one thing here. In the Masters of Digital, the 21st of February, we will announce a big study where we are looking at exactly every overlap there is on digital regulations, all the institutions, how they overlap or should be overlapping more in competences, and come out with a suggestion on how we can streamline this across the board. So, a lot of good things there. There's too much, and it's too difficult. It's making life extremely difficult for companies that are there to innovate, to make healthier Europe, to make sustainable Europe, to make a safer Europe. Okay, so where are we at? Let's take a status just before we start our TV-style debate on the Powerhouse. So right now, I mean, we would say no resilience without competitiveness. If we do not have competitive companies working hand in hand with the public sector, it's going to be pretty hard to be like a market-driven economy, right? And it's going to be pretty hard to be resilient if you have no supply chains. We all know that the last companies actually making the liquids for the solar panels are no longer European. So we want to move to solar energy. Well, we need to make the market conditions. We need to make it easier to get permissions, to invest, to scale, to get talent. So 40% increase in cyber attack. Huge problem. Major problem. We cannot regulate our way out. We lack 300,000 advanced specialists. There is no way that we can do that in public or private sector alone. We need basically to solve that problem. We also have an uptake of 8%. The Commission said 75%. We have a way to go. I know there's a small increase, but it's kind of teeny. So my idea is, why don't we define those KPIs together and we measure our success? We said, how much can we do in 1 year? How much can we do in 3 years? How much can we do in 5 years? And maybe we don't need, maybe we don't need 16. Maybe we just need 5. But I believe if we have common goals, we will reach them. So with that, there are people, there are actually decision makers in the parliament here today. Let me welcome on stage our honorable guests. First, Mia Petra Kumpranati. Please welcome on stage. Morten Lykkegaard from Renew Europe. Please welcome him on stage. Axel, please be my guest. And last, but absolutely not least, please join us, Damien Boeslager. Yeah. So, before we start this, should we hear what the audience thinks? I would like to actually just, you're sitting on like a QR code, right? You might not be sitting on it any longer, but if you scan it, you'll go to a Slido, and you will have a poll. So the poll is the maybe. Oh my God, they're not convinced yet. Is that 1? So do you believe in Europe's potential to become a global digital powerhouse by 2030. So let's look at the results and see how it goes. Maybe. Oh my God, they're not very convinced. Yes. Okay. Countdown.
Don't be a maybe.
10, 9, 8,
Maybe.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. 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 Ooh, So, okay.
Cut it.
So, you have a tough task today, ladies and gentlemen. Right?
Oh,
I mean,
still.
Still moving.
Now stop it now.
There's still hope. There's still hope. Okay. So you will have, during this kind of TV style debate, you will try to convince this audience, together with me, of course, because we're all on the same side, and tell, how will we get there, right? So let me start by the first thing that we will have is that we'll have 4 opening statements on the same question as we just had here. Can we become a digital powerhouse in 2030? Then we'll have 3 rounds of questions, and in between the question rounds, the dear panelists will be able to challenge each other or ask questions or whatever. And then we have 4 closing statements, so questions from the audience, and we'll try this poll in the end, and we'll see if we actually manage to convince just a little bit more people. So, and I'm sure, Samia, that you had taken notes on the results, right? Good. Good. So, why don't we start with ladies first? Please, do you think that we can become a digital powerhouse in 2030?
I'm always optimist, and I always believe that it's up much on the attitude. And Cecilia's attitude is great because you need to believe and you need to want to deliver. So that is the first answer. And also in the digitalization, there is a lot of attitudinal differences that should we also, for example, digitalize public sector. I like it very much here. Sometimes we tend to think that it will lag behind and the only private will do, but then it really should be there to be effective as a basis for the society too. I was underlining a lot what I saw there, but I still would like to see European innovations. Maybe you can still adapt that one or tell me where it is hidden there, because that is also what we need. And then innovations will grow, and then adaptation is the part of the attitude. So once we push for the European innovations, there should be also demand for that. And that has been quite successful, for example, on the climate legislation, that you say, hey, there is a market, or the biggest market in the world, 17% of the global GDP is here. We can turn the boat to have the demand for the green technologies. So why not more also on digital? And that's why I also think that the states and public sector can also show the way, pave the way, and not to be old-fashioned and outside. So everything starts from the infrastructure, and that, I think, the regulation that we have been doing has been pushing forward that one, that please do your 5G rollout, please get everybody on board, do not leave anybody behind. And then also the second layer is then the people. But unfortunately, education is on the national competence, but at least we can push it and cry out for those 300,000 cyber educated people and people with the knowledges. So this is to start with.
Thank you so much. Look at it. I mean, the timing. My God. So, Morten, do you think you could keep the time also?
To live up to that? I don't
Yeah.
know. No,
Should we try?
I wouldn't be so sure, but I would start at the very same point as Petra, because I'm also a born optimist. I really think that we can do this, and I'm not half as enthusiastic as you are, Cecilia. But anyway, I think it's good enough in the sense that. When I went into this field of digital some years ago through the Internal Market Committee, I was like, oh, do we really have to worry about this? I mean, this for kids. But I was wrong, as always. So we went into this, and And we now I think I counted. You have your own figures, so they're even worse than mine. But I think I counted 18 to 20 pieces of legislation within 2 years, just in my committee, causing my committee. So it's of course what we really need is a detox. We need a regulatory detox in the sense that we need a pause now, so that the companies can adapt to this. You were touching upon this yourself. I think it's mostly needed. Do we need less legislation? I really don't know, because I think most companies would agree, and I talk to a lot of them on a daily basis, would agree that we need regulation. You were saying that yourself, but we need better regulation, and we need to have an overview, and we need in order to do that successfully, we need a pause. So my first point would be, let's have a pause. We might get that now because we have elections, and normally you can do nothing within a year when we're talking elections. So we might get this pause. Next point would be, we need enforcement. It's not the laws that are the problem; it's enforcement of the laws. And I must say, when I look around the European Union and the 27 member states, it's really a very diverse picture, to say the least. So in order to be successful, in order for the companies not to be frustrated, and I do understand this frustration, we need for them to see that we can be successful in enforcement, and that is up.
You can continue.
Okay, just 1 point more. And in order to make enforcement work, you need people. You actually need a commissioner for enforcement. And that is basically what I would suggest to a start. Let's have this super commissioner. Let him be part of the management, like Margrethe Vestager and Timmermans, because we need one really hard digger, one that can actually enforce this also on a personal level. So when talking to von der Leyen next time they meet, so that all the good stuff she mentioned in her State of the Union speech would actually come through, because that's what people are worrying about just now. She said a lot of nice things, but will it come true? Well, maybe we start with, maybe Axel can say that something.
Yeah. Why don't you take over, Axel? Then, please.
Yes.
Can we become a digital powerhouse? Enforcement, infrastructure, innovation?
I have been very optimistic at the beginning of this mandate. I was very enthusiastic. But seeing now the reality and what we have done in these 4 years, a lot of regulation, but I do not see that we are coming forward. So if we would like to be a digital powerhouse, we need to have this will of digital surviving. We need to join the forces in Europe and coming up with joint projects. I can't see it differently. If this is done all by one member state or one company, I do not see that we are then might come forward with. And here I totally think we need the political courage also in the Commission and in the Parliament, and not trying always to approach everything what we are doing in a fear-driven approach, that we are then overburdening everything what we are doing, and there's a kind of a complex situation, and the AI Act is not this easy way forward. And so far what I'm seeing, I would say, yeah, it's more than less, a little bit less like the data protection regulation, and this is already a heavy burden. And especially if you're coming to Germany and this interpretation of the data protection. So, and there also we need also to come forward with the modernizing of the data protection regulation. Otherwise, I can't see how we can easily move forward with data. The health sector, for instance, yes, we are trying now to build up the European health data space, but probably this might also too complicated already. Thanks.
So, Damien,
Yes.
Your turn. Can we become a digital powerhouse, and what does it take?
It's always nice to go last, but since this is a debate, a TV debate, I want to say vote Volt, and then it will be possible. A digital powerhouse. I think there's a couple of things that have been mentioned that we need to look at. I think the first thing I have to say is that when you have regulatory intent, one intent can be to become a digital powerhouse. One intent can also be to safeguard citizen rights. And I think to understand that these don't always overlap is also just fair in our communication. But when you look at building a digital powerhouse, I would very much, as you did, look from the perspective of the companies that we are regulating and that need to innovate. And their bureaucracy is one of the things that is often mentioned, and to build a one-stop shop is something that we're also proposing in our manifesto. I think it makes a lot of sense, maybe also to provide English as a second language, administrative language, or third or fourth in all member states could be a very good approach, at least for companies to be able to expand more easily and not only have to go to the US to expand first and then come back to Europe to then get the single markets. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Then when you look at the other factors that people mention, talent, access to talent. 7 out of 10 companies in Europe can't grow as much as they would like to because of lack of talent. And what's currently happening with our migration policies being returned or regressing because of our current events is idiotic, to be honest, because it's really undermining our powerhouse structure. And I think it's something we're very slow and very much driven by a far-right agenda, which will really undermine our powerhouse possibilities. The third one, I have to say, is funds. We haven't really mentioned this a lot yet, especially for young businesses. This is a huge factor, and I know that we talk a lot about equity. I would be very careful with state equity, but we need to somehow think about rules, how we can unlock equity, for example, from institutional investors for smaller businesses. But we also need to look at CapEx, and this is not talked about enough. If you want to have CapEx investments, like in actual infrastructure that helps you digitize, I think there's a lot more to be done. I have a lot more ideas, but I'm done now, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Oh, that was on spot. Okay, so I hear like market innovation, create a market for green tech, like we did, continue that journey, make it even better. Detox, pause, enforcement commissioner. Let's really kind of make a full stop and make sure that we know what we're doing before we make more administrative burden. Health data space, much more kind of looking at the enabling factors of digital rather than being afraid and trying to prevent it. I do believe, sorry for my statement, I do believe that actually digital rights and then digital can go hand in hand, and I think that's the European way, and it should. English, one-stop shop, talent, migration, much more streamlined so we can get more talent in here. And funds, both CABITs and unlock more institutional funds. So, I'm almost convinced. I mean, at least we're a little bit more positive on that scale. So, let's move to the second question. So, if we look at private and public sector collaboration, well, we know that Ukraine has been really successful. We see a US that has much more like moving in and out of the administration, much more how can we use our strength much more? How can we, fight some of the things on resilience that we're afraid of together? So the question is, what should be done to keep your society and critical infrastructure safe in such a chaotic world? If you could choose a few things, how can we become more digital resilient? And why don't we start upside down? And with you first, Damon.
Okay, vote. I'm joking. So I think there's a couple of factors in your bucket that you had there. But I had a Ukrainian trainee for some time, and I don't know if you ever seen the digital wallet that Ukrainians have. I see some nodding. For me, this was insane. They had their ID, their student diploma, their vaccination report. They could take a photo of a Russian tank driving by and directly send it to the Ministry of Defense, and they were able to donate at any given point to their armed forces. And this was all built by this digital minister who was, I think, in the Fedorov, late 20s, beginning of 30s. I don't know, I forgot. But I was really quite amazed, and so you all seem to know this. And I think there is a lot more that we can learn from a digital wallet, by really thinking about how we can also get our skills more unified. I mean, the example you just gave of your Danish or Swedish friend, I forgot, that cannot study. I think that cannot be the case. This is not only for people who come from the outside to Europe, where it's already a nightmare to get their skills approved, but also still within the European Union. And we say we have the freedom of movement and everybody can go everywhere. but it's not working yet, and I think there a lot more can be done. I would also say that when we think about the digital infrastructure, there's a lot more to be done, especially for critical infrastructure, and maybe that's something that we can discuss a bit more. When it comes to AI, I think we are all still in this either you're for or against debate. And for me, it is too simplistic. I would love to see from the doomsday people more clear scenarios of how we are all dying, because this was just last week again in the US, somebody told me, this is over, we are already too far ahead. But I need these scenarios that are a bit more precise so that we can actually regulate in a right way to understand. But I think it's important to keep these risks and to also understand what the concentration of wealth can actually happen if you have a couple of foundational models and how we can deal with that with decentralized taxation at usage level. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. How can we become more resilient? How do we increase? We know all the dangers, but do we know the solutions?
Let's cross fingers that we will know. Of course, at first, what was mentioned already, skills is one point. If we are looking to other regions in the world, they have this already at grammar school. And so I do not see this so far in Europe. And that's why we need to face the reality, digital reality, in saying, we have to train our people. Then in a federal system, also in the European Union, everyone is proud of its own structure, and here we have to think more centralized, probably especially in standards or the interoperability and so on. People can move forward, but we have to set these standards and making this available for all possible the interoperability. And here, once again, I would say also we need a kind of a flexible legislator at the end, that we might come forward with a kind of this legitimate decision or democratic legitimate decision in 3 months or so to frame problems. And also, once again, you need in this federal system, in a way, the will in coming forward and setting all these points and trying in the digital or in the administration that we are coming forward with these. But then, of course, cybersecurity is the most important point to enable all these. And here we should focus on that we have a well-functioning system in place and training all the time, because the attacks will more grow than will be less in the future. And that's why I think we have to focus on these and really try to come with a strategy and then enable these in a way that we might be resilient one day.
A lot of skills here. I mean, it's really good, because I think one of the things that we're also discussing is how do we actually become resilient through having the right skills. I mean, I lived some years in Asia, and I can tell you they study, all the STEM skills and digital skills at a very early stage. And if we look at governments also, a lot of digital skills. As soon as you enter Europe, it's not on it's like, well, do we need a digital curricula? It's pretty much the only language in the world. And by the way, linked to our security. So I think that we are onto something here. So increasing resilience, internal market resilience, financial resilience. How do we do more things?
Well, coming from a country that actually have some success with building on public-private partnerships, namely Denmark, I'm not afraid of this. I think that this is actually the natural way forward, and I think a lot of countries could learn of that. I mean, basically, it's about trust. I mean, Axel touched upon that already from the start. I mean, now you're using the Ukrainian example. I don't know much about that. Or I heard about Microsoft and all the good things that are done there. But I've been several times to Estonia, to give an example of a member state actually dealing with this quite successfully, where they have this kind of all citizens, membership or ownership to the whole thing. And when we were there, we were surprised. Remember the IMCO committee were there. We were all asking the question: are you afraid of this? You are so close to the Russians, and you can get yourself into all kinds of trouble because you have your vote digitally and so on and so forth. And it was like, why do you bother? I mean, we have been working together with the CIA for the past 45 years. I mean, we know all about the loopholes and the risks. So you just get on with it. And this was for me an eye-opener, because we need this trust in doing things and development also in other member states. And that brings me to my second point. I mean, the big elephant in the room is we need more Europe in order to do that. I mean, you didn't say it, Axel, but well, you mean it. We need to this federal. Let's not use the word federal, but let's just say that in order to have more skills and to work with skills, we need to have some kind of competence in Brussels to do common stuff on skills. And that is the elephant in the room, because we need to have more Europe in areas which we're not traditional used to have these skills, these competences. So there's a big political debate we need to have on this.
Learn from the masters of digital and not being afraid and actually looking at what they are doing and how they use it. And more Europe, a license to act on the most important areas of digital. So, I mean, if somebody knows anything about resilience, it's definitely the Finnish. I mean, that's let's please share your ideas, Mia.
Yes, if you look at for like infrastructure side, then we know something, the cables under the Baltic Sea, who broke them by accident or not. So this is a very, very actual debate at the moment. But then also we know that there is like a third wave of cyber attacks going on. What is the best vaccination? It is that the knowledgeable people. So I would also say that never underestimate the digitalization, the skills and education. But what is needed for the future education? I was yesterday also commenting the World Bank report on the new skills needed for the new transition and the digital jobs. So it is to invest on people, because digitalization is a lot of infrastructures and others, but if we lack also the knowledge, and I also want to say not only the specialists or cyber experts, we need citizens to be vaccinated against cyber war that we are actually going on at this stage. Ukrainians know it. They know what they fight for. If our, not only young people, but even our age people use time in internet or the social media on what they use, and the influence is there. I came directly listening to Maria Rosa, the Nobel laureate, who is speaking, and I quote, that if we don't have facts, as anybody can insert anything, then we don't have knowledge. If we don't have knowledge, we cannot have trust. And without trust, there's not democracy anymore. So, yes, sometimes we need to look at the content, where we are, how we are using that, because the best vaccination is educated people with the right to have right knowledge. And I think we are doing that quite good even in Finland. So all those tries on the fake news and whatsoever, they are less impacting when you know where you are. And I think the Estonians have that very clear as well. So that is a little part of the resilience as well. So this is the human part, and then you have the infrastructure part, and both need to be looked at carefully.
Yeah. So just dropping an idea, like I was thinking, are there actually certain critical skills that can be the responsibility of the EU? I mean, are there societal skills that are too important not to collaborate on, would be my question. And I definitely could mention, 3 or 4 areas where I think that could be the case. So let's move to being competitive. I mean, we said no resilience without competitiveness, right? So are we competitive? Do we have one market? I mean, companies are, let's just imagine in 2030, the statement is, Europe is the best, coolest place and most easiest place in the world to make business. How do we get there? To boost our competitive edge. You mentioned the detox, but, there might be other ideas, right? So if to get there in 2030, how do we become the most cool, easy place to make business? Okay, let's start this time with Morten.
Well, I'll be brief on this one. Let's try to look at our friends in America. I mean, we just came back, 4 committees. Some of us were actually there just a week ago, where we discussed very intensely the AI, the executive order from the president. And I must say, and I'm not, making... My American friends are also making a lot of mistakes, for sure. But one thing they get right is the innovative parts. I mean, you again from the very start, and I wonder why they have this trust, but they have trust in their system and in their companies and innovation from the very start. And this trust builds the whole system, and it has done that from the very start. Our risk-based approach is, of course, very nice to have, maybe also need to have in this situation. And I think we are also inspired then to come up with a certain risk-based approach. But on the other hand, we also have to take some inspiration from them. We will never be the US, and for certainly we might not need to be the US, but we need to take some inspiration from this system right now, because otherwise we will end up in this, this mess of 27 member states, which Axel also already touched upon. I mean, a system where we do not have a federal system, but we do not have the opposite as well. But so we are in between, and this is going to bury us in the end if we don't take inspiration from other parts of the world. More trips to the US, more talks. A transatlantic dialogue would be my first suggestion, because. And we could take AI as the big example. I mean, AI is coming now. It's all over the place. Everyone is inspired by it. So let's listen to the Americans.
Cool. Let's learn from the best on a single market and growth and innovation. So let me move to you, Mia. How to become more competitive? I mean,
I also spent last week, the whole week in Silicon Valley, so I have a lot of ideas. But I also had a fire chat with Lina Khan, who is leading of the Trade Commissioner, who is challenging the big tech that they don't do everything very right. Because if you look also only the amount of the power of big tech in the stock exchange, and you take the 5 out, US is not delivering that great. So that's why I believe that there is possibility for the European powerhouse also. So it's not yes or not, or it's not only the measure the few big, but it's measure everything. And we think that in Europe you have like more startups than in USA. But why do they stop? And that is to look at. The finance is very, very, very big part. And of the finance, you have almost everything in the island or where I was the last week. So, but also I think it's getting a bit better that we have had this TTC. It's not great delivery of everything, the Tech and Trade Council, but at least we have like converged. We have even MEPs meeting with each other. Because earlier we had it only on trade, where we tried to make the trade agreements. Now we try to make some convergence and understanding even on the legislation. And I read the executive order, quite powerful, that companies have to report the government on the risk-based solutions. How did they do the tests? It's pretty powerful with the parliament or with the legislative Congress that cannot make any legislative proposal, hardly budget or elect the chair for that. So not everything needs to be copied, but what I understand is a lot of the attitude and acceptance of the digitalization to happen. So not to break the machines that they will take our jobs, but instead be adaptive and wanna go there and not wanna to stop. I also want to give one credit from far left to the far right. You, Axel, mentioned that we need something like European industrial policy, and even I understood some funds, because I think that we are not delivering that the best we can find in Europe is finance. Now we started with industrial policy, but the digitalization is not too often mentioned. Digitalization was part of the RRF that split everywhere. So also we didn't see that digitalization as one possibility to grow big industrial sector.
So, I mean, if we don't bounce ideas, we don't get any good ideas, right? And I hear you say, like, executive orders are maybe not such a bad idea. I heard federal, state, maybe let's not call it because nobody wants it, but maybe we actually need more competences on some of the areas of the future that are no longer the same than we did the treaty 120 years ago, not 120 years ago. But okay,
Feels
so,
like.
Axel, I have if I had a company, I had a few, right? So if I have a company now, and I'm looking at Europe and I'm thinking like, what a cool place to make business. I'm gonna stay.
So at first I would say Europe can provide to the world something what is not existing, linking values to technology. But we have to be as fast as the other regions without linking these values. And if we are coming to this point, then it might getting better. We need a good also digital administration, because a good administration at home means also a kind of a good way forward for competitiveness. Then, of course, a precondition is cybersecurity, funding, also venture capital, infrastructure and research. And if we are focusing also on research and probably prioritizing a bit more, that we are all doing here or coming forward in one of these elements, if this is self-driving cars or green tech, smart farming or whatever it is. But definitely it has to be AI. So here we have to come forward with, and as a kind of a accompanying point, I would say probably we need also to have a break for this public procurement thing if we are coming to the administrations, just to invest and not being delayed by all these processes. We need probably also to streamline a bit more the governance structures of all these acts you have mentioned, to make it more easier and not that companies have to face all different governance structures. So I think this is a task for the next mandate, and probably it might also be quite helpful to reduce reporting and information and whatever obligations, and trying to do this more in a digital way forward.
Great. So, last again but not least.
Yeah, so you wouldn't maybe think that standing here, but I'm or identify as an ordo-liberal. And to be honest, I have a bit of an issue, because I think when we talk about competitiveness, we often talk now about more funds by the public sector to be put forward, and we talk about state aid, and we talk about loosening these rules. And for me, competitiveness is not that Google is European. And I think for Breton, for example, then we would be very competitive. And also you measure, your KPI, our top companies are European. I don't believe in that so much. And there was some mentioning of, maybe by Mia Petra, also by SMEs. I want to make sure that our market rules are not completely undermined, and also interior market rules. So Germany spending 10 billion on one chips factory sounds great, but how is that in line with our European market rules? How can a Slovenian company or like a Slovenian government compete with that? I'm really afraid that we are going fully in, let's spend as much as we can, because we are confronted with a China that definitely has these kind of state aid supports, and also the US, which is going a bit more in this direction. I think they are smarter about it with the tax breaks, yeah? But still, I think if we want to be competitive, let's think about what we should do as a state and what we should do as innovators. And as a state, we should make sure that we get out of the innovators' way, and that we ensure that there are no barriers to entry by large concentrated markets. So for me, this is really an important message also, to get a bit back to what the role of the different players is in this field, and not think that we as regulators know everything that should happen and should have all the funds in our hands to have some form of state-directed policies. And that also is a bit giving responsibility back to you. It also means that we as administrators, we should make sure that we are better. I mean, just last 10 seconds, our digitalization minister in Frankfurt is from my party. She thought she would digitize Frankfurt. What she had to deal with is that all her digital staff was going away, and they were not almost even possible to hold the file of the data, the voter data in check. So when we talk about digitization skills we need, but we need to do our homework on the administration front, and I think we should also leave it to the public sector to innovate.
Cool. So I definitely hear some trends here. I hear, let's learn from the ones who do it the best. Let's try to look at how they act, both in how they regulate or do not regulate or take decisions. Let's get out of their way. Let's remove the barriers. Let's make sure that, market barriers to, as you said, high concentration market, but let's fix the minimum. Let's make sure that there is a market economy. Funding, yes, no, different views on that one. Maybe just an idea on, for example, I think that around 50% of our GDP is public sector procurement. So what if, for example, there was like a scalability strategy for public procurement across Europe, which was the same? Maybe like 25% of the funds needs to go to scalable companies, SMEs. I'm just like, could be an idea. One thing is for sure, competences, capital, and a common market, or speed, scale, and single market are all words that returns. So, do you want to challenge each other? Anybody wants to challenge each other?
Well, did anyone record what Domian just said? I mean, such a sweet liberal music. I was just
You wouldn't believe it, but I read Hayek in my university, and now I'll tell you something which is a small little detail. But if you open the Constitution of Liberty, the first chapter of Hayek, the liberal, what will you find is, and I'm not a fan of this, by the way, but is a minimum basic income. Because he says, my whole liberal theory only works if we are free to choose which contract we engage in for our jobs. So let's make a minimum basic income for everyone. So we also have to be careful. Sorry.
no, it's okay. But maybe if I could challenge what was said over here about.
I think she also wants to challenge you. So go ahead.
Okay, no, but it was just what I started talking about trust and about how to look to the Americans, and then you talked a little about that they were not doing things right. I think financing, if we take that point for one, I think that in order to have investment, in order to have all this financing that we all want to happen, you need trust. And this is basically coming back to my point, and I don't think that you addressed this one. I mean, if we want, if we can agree on, we need much more financing of European SMEs and European startups and so on and so forth. We need to go, in my point of view, we need to go a lot further, creating trust, not creating legislation as such, but creating trust for the companies to invest. So I miss this link in the arguments.
Yeah, I actually only mentioned that the finance is concentrated so much in Silicon Valley that many live there also for that, not only for English language or for avoid the legislation. I also think that even we were not having the big champions that many before this legislative term. So if that would be true that we go only down, then it's also a challenge. But then also I think that many legislative parts have been there to legislate not to have monopolies. And I think Damian also touched that one. That do we want to have monopolies or market economy? And if we do have a market economy, so that there is not only 10 people here, because only 10 companies take everything, that is the challenge. And also, I think that in the trust, it's also having the foresight that where we are going and knowing. So I think we have branded ourselves quite good. We, European democratic elected decision makers from EPP until here, we said that values play some role. So then that is at least the quadrail for digital innovations. And I was happy to see that on AI there is a global governance in UN, there is ethical body nominated, executive order is risk-based, OECD is giving the rail, and we do the legislation. So we are having this coherence, what is also predictable for companies.
Okay. So you can challenge next time, right? If not, I'm running out of time. I see Chris all nervous and sitting on the edge of the chair. So yeah, exactly. I don't know what time it is. He says like you need to be finished by here, and I'm like, what? I don't know what time it is. Okay, so let's move to the third and last question. If there were two things that could bring tech closer to the citizens and help companies access highly qualified workforce. And we just agreed on we need more skills and maybe more mandate. Maybe there are some critical skills that needs to be handled on European level. But are there other things that we can either kind of bring citizens closer to tech and where we can get the people that we need in the society? And this time, why don't we start with you, Damien?
It makes me very happy because it's a topic I've been working on for some time. So the EU Blue Card Directive is one that I also negotiated. It came into place now also on the member state level. and it actually allows that you bring tech people here without a bachelor or master's degree already. So we have a European tech visa, which is pretty cool. The second thing, I'm currently negotiating the long-term residence directive, and today France again started blocking this, which is very dangerous because we need to have a unified European labor market for international talent. The offer of the US of a huge market is just more attractive. And if you start in Bulgaria and Sofia, and then you can't move to the other member states, at least after 2-3 years, then this becomes an issue because you just, as a European Union as a whole, you're not using your full potential. And I'm very happy because a law that I proposed as a pilot project, the EU talent pool, is going to be proposed on the 15th of this month. So this is basically the idea that international talent can register their interest to work in the European Union. And that's really cool because then basically we could match that with European employers or vacancies. I'm just telling you that there will be a lot of work needed also from your side because there are a lot of countries that actually want to restrict this to less geographies. So just certain countries that we like can send their talent, which makes zero sense if you want to build a platform, or to certain skill levels or to certain industries. If you build a platform, you want everyone to go to this Make It in Europe platform to register their interest and to be able to then be matched with vacancies. Then we still have the national level giving out those visas, but at least for the match, let's make sure it is as broad as possible. I think there's a lot to be said about upskilling. Here we have the issue that what can the EU actually do when it comes to education? And I do believe that there is citizen education in the digital sphere where we have to do a lot. There's also coding lessons and so on. And I think we might need to have a discussion about what can Europe do in the schools as of today, and not only in universities and via the Horizon program. I think this would be my point so far.
Axel, your turn.
So, if you're meaning professionals, bringing them closer to us, then of course we need probably to change also some structures regarding funding and so. What they are loving probably is the freedom of research. Here. So we have to empower the research in a way and then trying to make out business models out of it and bringing these then to the consumer or to the individuals or users. This then trust, of course, is always playing a role as far as I seeing these. So you have to secure these and then once again, what we mentioned already is skills from the beginning to get a feeling for digitalization, get a feeling for algorithms, and trying to bring this knowledge further and kind of an idea of these. So, and what I also would say, if we're looking to the European field, probably these consumer elements like social media, this is gone. I can't see that we are succeeding there. But finding our niches, this might be something where we can add on and where we can be successful. And here we need then these professionals also going in these directions and finding these niches, making business models out of it. And then we can get here something forward. But for the individual one, of course, there is always playing security, kind of an insurance probably, if you're doing something wrong that you are not getting bankrupt or so. The digital euro might be, in a way, one point forward also in making more trust if you're coming to the internet and that you not have to deal with bitcoins or cryptocurrency. So I think this might be some points.
Well, Digital Europe is going to be a big file, right? So I hear, portal access to foreign workforce, better conditions, better matchmaking, coding lessons, research, access to more research, Digital Europe as Euro, not Europe, of course, Digital Europe is the solution for everything, but apart from that. No, so Mia, how do we move digital closer to people and how do we get access to the right talent?
Yes, there was that you have to go to Asia to see the people starting the digital education. You can come to Finland. So it has been there for longer that you take it. And I think you can even evaluate now that is it going too far, as my daughter doesn't have any book and she's still 17. Not a single book from the school. So I said, please look at the mathematics, have a pen and think. But they all learn to think on the screens. So that's still something I think you have to look the cognitive studies afterwards. So, but at least they are digital and they are learning a lot and be prepared. Don't anything more. How to make them read books again is the next question. But then I think that this education and reskilling, upskilling, how many we nowadays add when we do any document, is important. That also the workforce at the companies at this stage, on those 92% of SMEs that are not trading, or the companies that do not use the AI or do not use, we cannot just push them out and wait next generation to come. So we have to have something for those people. And I think it's best always to inform the people at work that we are doing the digitalization and educate them so they on board. That will get a lot of people closer to the digitalization if they know how my company could do that. So it was like, because something we have been doing good on the climate change. And I think suddenly in Finland, the trade union started that, hey, what should we do on the climate change? Because otherwise they will be pushed away on the talks. So they included, had the ideas. At my workplace, we can do this one, and they were integrated to the innovation. So something similar could be happening on the digital. So it is not only that, hey, my employer will start surveying me with my sweating or speaking tone or my gestures or face recognition. Because some people think that is the digitalization. So build on trust, also inclusive way that take them on board. They might be good ideas that, hey, I heard that I can use Uber this way or that way. Why not in our company we can do something similar? So I really, really hope that one. And I had to mention earlier that trade is something that we are delivering and data transfers. So I hope that was mentioned now. Could have been on the resilience or other parts as well.
Yeah. So mandatory tech skills in schools and three-party negotiations, bringing the unions along to integrate it also.
Because I don't want to see them striking against this one.
No, but certainly strike all the time. I hear
No, but that's why you take it.
Yeah,
The
no,
clever minds.
So one thing, but it's a very good idea. I think it's a very good idea. Of course, if we don't bring them along, it's just a danger. But should there, so maybe also a mandatory like tech education for policymakers? No, just an idea. Anyway, Morten, what's your ideas?
Well, just firstly an anecdote, because I was inspired by what you just said. In Denmark, in my municipality, we just introduced the policy of taking the iPads from the babies. Because in the kindergartens, they all have iPads. So they all start their learning process in the kindergartens. And now people realize that so many hours in front of an iPad is not good for youngsters with 2 or 3 years old. So we are kind of coming back to pencils and drawings and stuff like that. But anyway, I think that you provide us with some figures with, I think, quite outrageous. I mean, saying that about 45% of European citizens lack basic digital skills. I mean, that for sure almost delivers the answers, because of course we have to talk about skills. And we have to talk about skills from the very early days. And I would agree that I think our political responsibility is to sort of open or reopen this debate about what can we do on a European level when it comes to some kind of common interest, policies in this area. And it's in many countries, including mine, it's a no-go area. You don't walk into this mining field. But anyway, I think we need to do that. And I think times are different now. 10 years ago, when I was the vice president of the Education Committee, Culture and Education Committee in the Parliament, I mean, we didn't even want to mention this. But today, I think people recognize that we need to do something also in this field. So I would very much agree what's been said without repeating it. I would just say that we need to have a look also politically on what to do on a European scale. So it's not only Danish and Finnish first world problem we are discussing, but also what can we actually do with, in Romania and other places where this really is a much bigger problem.
Yeah, there are really huge differences, right? And it's even now we see governments that normally was not higher in the DES index. We've seen in Spain going from 16 to number 6 or 7 in only a few years, right? Amazing job. So it's doable, but how do we do it at a European scale? And I think one of the conclusions is skills, skills, and skills is actually one of the answers, but there are no mandates. So, voila. I mean, there you go. So maybe just 1-2 minutes if anybody wants to challenge each other on this one. No? Oh, God, you're so friendly. Okay. So let's then basically we are going to go first to the audience for a few questions. So let me look at everyone. I have a question that I will start with that it was online. Survey, we asked for questions before. While you think, I will only take 2. You'll only have 15 seconds to post your question. So don't go, I would like to elaborate on this comment. Just go like question, right? So while you're thinking, I'm gonna make another question. So now rolling out something like AI Act. Do we need 27 different institutions, or do we need like also 16 in Germany? Or can we have only one? Can we do one institution for all the companies so they can go in one place, or do we need one in each member state? So, good question. Who wants to answer?
So, normally one would be enough. They have to interpret the text or the provisions in a way that this is valid throughout the whole EU, and not what we have had in the mistake with the data protection regulation, where everyone is interpreting this differently, and then you need something to coordinate. So this is not the way. So I think this is possible, but of course you need still administration in your region, and then observing or governing these the whole provisions. But one interpretation, and this is the way forward.
So one interpretation, but multiple institutions. Anybody else wants to answer that question?
I think it's you point directly at a very, very difficult question, because I think most of us would want to answer you one is enough, like you just did, Axel. But the reality is somewhat different. And I think we are not at a point right now where we can be sure that one institution would be enough as it is. I would surely hope that we can end there, but we need to be much closer to the interpretation as Axel was just talking about. I think it would be a bit dangerous to give a guarantee of just one institution where we are right now.
Maybe we can use an algorithm to make it more efficient. Who knows?
Maybe even look then afterwards that if we do we are the legislators, and if it stands that there is an AI agency or body or whatever it is, that then also look afterwards, because even what is the paper mug cup? It is different in every country. Even we have one legislation. So this is not durable. And then I think that the single market is something that is celebrating how many years we have had it, and then we want to celebrate it, and then this is the reality still. And on digital, it's the most stupid one to be breaking in so many parts. So I think that the one-stop shop was challenged sometimes from Germany. So now we have 2 Germans on here. So maybe we are taking progress. Because that was something that I understood. It comes from the historical memory that if somebody knows too much about you, then you don't want to share the information. But it shouldn't maybe go for the companies anymore. And so I hope a lot that this will, the coherence of the single market we put there. That is also, I think, one of the very, very big challenges. I think Damian touched it, that the state aids and single market, and if it's not any more market, that the best is the winner, but then the biggest state is the winner, we will lose also the European competitiveness.
I think there's very often the situation that we say, oh, Brussels is so complex, they want to put it in all the 27 member states and so on. And when you look into it, you understand it's the council who is not willing to give up certain competences. And I have seen this throughout all the regulation I've worked on, and digital regulation was no difference there. So I think to be daring and to say, let's do one, and then let's see if this is really delivering worse than 27. I would rather go in this direction, especially for AI. As you said, it's a digital field, and yes, you need to understand local contexts, but it's also not, rocket science to take some people from each nation and maybe bring them together in one unified agency.
Yeah, I mean, it seems from a private sector perspective, it seems extremely inefficient if you want one single market to basically regulate on a regional level. I mean, to me, it doesn't resonate. But okay, we're getting there, right? I mean, somehow we need to I think, make it more efficient. So, turning to the audience, are you ready with the mic? Yes. Okay. Yes, there is a question from a gentleman here.
Just a question, what is the political your political party's priority when it comes to digitalization's nexus with green transition?
Mine, you mean?
All four.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
No.
very good. I mean, you're taking all the thunder, but okay, let's have it. Green and digital priorities. Let's go like 15 seconds. Tack, tack, tack.
Yeah, it's a twin transition. It doesn't go one without the other, so it is the natural. And then I have been personally pushing the idea that we have to be brave to invest on the digitalization and data, because that will help to reduce the emissions from the other sectors.
Anybody else?
Well, I had to be very dull here. I actually agree with my social democratic colleague here. I mean, you can't have one without the other. I mean, the one is prerequisite for the other. So this, I think, in order to make the green transition a success, you have to be totally digitalized. Yeah. That's basically what the short answer to that.
I agree.
Okay. Do you disagree on something?
I would just say there is a use case which is a bit more, let's say, tangible, which is smart grids. Yeah? And I think if you actually understand that you can use the digital capacity, for example, of algorithms to understand some of these environmental and climate issues, then I think you can make a big leap forward.
Yeah. If I may answer your question also, I think we need to focus where the biggest gains are. Where are we polluting the most, and how can we basically use digital to solve those challenges? Okay, next question. Are you happy?
No.
Very happy. Oh, okay, next question. You see.
Yes, Technology Industries Finland, wonderful panel. Actually, I hope we get some different points of view. Can we go forward in Europe without touching the GDPR?
Aha. Yes. Mr. GDPR, please.
Mr. Anti-GDPR.
No, I would say we have to modernize it as soon as possible. And here, once again, I see the lack of political courage and will in coming forward, because we are always interfering. So AI, and you need a lot of personal data to train your algorithms. And so we need to solve this.
I think the answer was no. He wants to open it. Damien.
Look, I'm not a data privacy expert. I have to say this up front. From what I learned from the Data Act, I think there's interpretation issues when it comes to general or specific consent. And sometimes I feel that Germany especially is being more papal than the Pope when it comes to the interpretation.
Oh,
but do we actually need to change the legislation? I'm not sure.
But
It's
he's
in the
saying
how,
he
not in the
agrees
what.
with me.
No, I'm not.
Or then.
Well, let me be maybe even more provocative here. I mean, if you didn't have GDPR, you have to invent it. That's basically the starting point here. So we and I can assure you, in Denmark we had. I mean, it's a mess. But it's in 10 years from now, we will say it's about details. We are discussing about details. Sorry.
So, it's there. Live with it. Yeah. Clean it up.
Yes, we can continue being the value-based continent. And we want to be. And there has been like copied exercises in California, in the USA, in even China, they use that name. So it's a good brand to create something that you can trust on. I will ask every company that why you cannot live with that.
Okay,
What you are intending to do.
That was three questions in total. So just saying one thing. We talk a lot about values. It's very hard to be value-based if you don't make value. Just saying. Anyway,
Well,
so, you know.
That's a good
Thought about this.
So, anyway, let's look if these ladies and gentlemen, if you have a digital manifesto, right? If you haven't convinced them yet, let's see if you can convince them. you know, the formerly known as Twitter, you had 140 character to explain yourself. Okay, so if you only have,
can we pay and then get more?
no, no. So if you only have that, what would be your digital? You know, you go to your voters and you say, right? So, who wants to start?
I can.
Yes, please.
I would say, I guess, something like excellence to create a powerhouse, a digital powerhouse needs industrial excellence and it needs policy excellence, but it doesn't necessarily need industrial policy excellence.
Okay, wow, that was good. I need to think about that.
I would just list what I would like to have: priorities, less data protection, or the modernizing of GDPR, and more political will, courage in being more open, also enabling AI in a way, because this is the fundament of everything what is coming. So we need to be having kind of an easy approach to it, and of course a lot of money and something like this. But this is what we need to do, and I'm very much convinced. The window of opportunity is closing, therefore we have to have a strategy in place and executing this.
So, less strict enforcement on GDPR and more use of data and algorithms. But not unnuanced, but
It's a way of more trying to frame this more in an easy way and not too complicated and over-regulating in a way. So what I'm hearing all the time is, there's a risk here and there, and this fear-driven approach
you
is
used
wrong.
the 140.
It is much more than
Yeah, it is,
140 characters.
Yeah, let's see.
I put some smiley faces behind my.
Yeah,
No, probably I mixed the numbers to 401.
140 characters. Can you do it, Morten?
Well, you have to work with headlines since you have 140. So let me try. The EU must be the world's digital light on the hill. In order to do that, we must invest in skills, we must have a regulatory pause, and we must have a commissioner for enforcement.
Voila.
141.
Hey. Mia.
He's a journalist with the titles. But yeah, I was writing here because I didn't know this before, and so I didn't count, but I made it here. Make your future, be part of the trusted, digital, human-centered digital society. We invest in skills and democracy. AI is fun.
Okay, let's give them a hand. Well done, well done, well done. At least, I mean, digital is definitely high on the agenda. I mean, when I went to the industry, like, God, it's long
A million years ago. Yeah.
It's a lot of years ago. Anyway, people are like, why would you want to do digital? It's so boring, right? I'm like, are you crazy? It's so fun, right? Now everybody thinks it's fun. So, okay, or dangerous, by the way. So, let's look. Have you been convincing? I mean, did you convince that we actually can become a digital powerhouse in 2030? Please do go to your Slidos. So it's a yes, maybe, no. Will it move? Are they convincing?
The no is
Oh my
rising.
God, no, but like, maybe. A bit
Yes,
more,
maybes.
no. Oh my God! Oh, we need to work on the pitch.
Someone hacking this? Or?
Yeah, yeah. Ah, yes. Okay, counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's look at it.
Ended up in
Oh
the
my God. Okay. That's what I call winning with a small majority, right? Okay. I mean, at least it was better than before, no? It was better than before.
Marginally.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, can you stop the survey now, please? Okay, there is definitely one thing. I mean, we moved forward. There is more yes now than before, but there is still a road to be convincing that we're going to walk the talk. I would say common goals. Let's measure ourselves on a quarterly basis on the progress on becoming a digital powerhouse might help. And with that, let me close this session off. I would like, before you need to stay, you cannot go anywhere, please. Good. Can we please give a round of applause to these amazing panelists?